Imagine this. You meet someone who seems to understand you completely, more than anyone ever has. They listen to your words, but they also hear the mute ache underneath them. Your silence doesn't confuse them. Your hesitation bears meaning. For the first time in your life, you feel understood. And then it all starts falling apart with a loud bang. Perhaps they pull away, frightened by the intensity of the bond. Perhaps they stay, but slowly. Their gaze, once lively, turns dull. No longer do they see you, only the idea of you. Or worse, they start to resent all those things that drew them in. Your depth, your intuition, your insistent craving for something genuine. And you're standing in the ruins, haunted by the never-changing question, why does this keep happening? Because you are an INFJ, the rarest of all types, the so-called old soul. The one who feels like he has landed smack in the middle of a society where everyone else is happy with small talk and trivial connections. Loving in a transcendent way, a joining of minds and souls, not just bodies and routines, is your deepest desire. Time and again, though, you find yourself locked in relationships that wilt under the weight of unfulfilled expectations, your own or somebody else's. But here's the paradox: the very things that enable you to love extraordinarily also make it almost impossible for you to find such love. Your empathy disarms people, drawing them into your orbit, but in so doing, it also lets you detect their hidden fractures before they can. Your idealism makes you absolutely devoted, yet it erects a standard most cannot meet. Your intuition alerts you when something feels wrong, but it also cuts you off from connection since you know truths that others deny. And so, the cruel choice that lies before you. Do you dull your senses, pretending not to notice the cracks in the foundation just to keep someone close? Or do you remain ruthlessly authentic, knowing it might mean walking alone? This is INFJ heartache, not from a lack of love, but from those frequent discoveries when that love others profess seems an insipid version. You want recognition, not just company. You want someone who can withstand the storm of your mind and won't flinch when you dare to show the raw, unedited version of yourself. But here comes the harsh truth. Most people have no clue how to love like that. Not because they are wicked or shallow, but because they look for comfort before depth. Love in our society is taught as a commodity, an exchange of needs, a balancing of compromises. But for the INFJ, love is the one thing that reveals the union of both light and shadow. So you sit with two choices. Will you attempt to keep searching despite all odds? Or will you decide to watch the world go by, leaving them to it and protecting your heart at the cost of that deepest desire? Understanding why this happens, not just to you, but because of you, is where the answer lies. And that from where we begin. In the relationship realm, the affair of the INFJ is a great challenge. It is instead a clash of two worlds. On one side is the modern love we see today, a marketplace of instant gratification where relationships are set and measured by convenience, chemistry, and compromise. On the other is the soul of an INFJ, an heirloom of something older, fiercer, and far more demanding. They don't ask for a partner or relationship, they demand a witness next to them in the flames of creation who will say, "Yes, I see it too." But even so, why does that battle grow so rarely? Depth, mismatch. When empathy becomes a curse. Carl Jung noted that loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. This is where the INFJ's greatest wound lies. Your intuition works as a sixth sense. You perceive the unspoken fears, contradictions, and ulterior motives of others long before the person ever gets around to articulating them. This leads to a cruel irony. The deeper you understand someone, the harder it becomes to ignore the ways they seem wrong for you. Most people fall in love with layers of gradual discoverability. They start with the surface level, attraction, shared interests, chemistry, and only plunge into the depths later, if ever. The INFJ works from the depths. You hear beneath their words the tremor of their insecurities. You watch their behavior and sense the childhood injuries propelling it. That's why INFJs usually experience attractive disillusionment early in a relationship. When others are enjoying the complete honeymoon phase, you have already seen the cracks in their foundation. Once cracking occurs, it can never go back. The idealist's trap: love as a mirror of the soul. Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." The INFJ knows this instinctively. They want love to change. They want a love that burns illusions and creates the transcendent. But here's the trap. You're not looking for a person. You're looking for a myth. The INFJ understands love in more than emotional or physical terms. It is philosophical. You want more than companionship. You want a joining of consciousness, a dialogue that spans lifetimes. You are attracted to this concept of soulmate status, not as a romantic fiction, but as a metaphysical imperative. But such love finds no credence in today's world. To date is to transact. Dating apps and social timelines back that. There is the unspoken pressure to settle before it's too late. An INFJ could not submit to any of that, not due to arrogance, but because her spirit can't abide a sham. The fear of being consumed. In his savage critique of human behavior, Arthur Schopenhauer compared relationships to two porcupines huddled to keep warm in winter. Too close, and they prick one another. Too far, and they freeze. The INFJ personifies this anomaly. You crave closeness, yet you fear it. Why? Because to be known is to risk being consumed. INFJs are the difference of the invisible. In such a way, love suffering of an INFJ shapes reality. All through the INFJ's recurrent love disappointments lies the very tragedy of personal experience. It silently designs the entire emotional landscape. Carved by water through stone, these broken relationships leave behind canyons of grief unspoken and redesign the topography of their trust, hope, and love again. The self-fulfilling prophecy of doubt. When Jean-Paul Sartre pronounced, "Hell is the other people," the INFJ would say, "Hell is the dark belief that there is no one who actually sees him or her." It was not simple pessimism. It is a defensive mechanism forged through the fires of experience and repeatedly being disappointed. The stages are as follows. Stage 1. The INFJ meets someone who they should not hope to be with but does so anyway. Stage 2. They have an intuition that there is not much depth, an emotional unavailability, or values that just do not coincide. Stage 3. They either A. ignore the warnings and go along, then get hurt afterward, or B. withdraw early in an attempt to avoid a possible pain. This pattern reinforces itself over time as a merciless inner algorithm. If I open myself, I will be misunderstood. If I don't, I will be alone. The INFJ is caught in a vicious cycle of sabotage. They never trust anybody but still keep their own heart locked from them. The soul's Stockholm Syndrome. It is dissimilar, though, from the latter kind of agony whereby an INFJ remains too long in a not really fulfilling relationship. They do not move out like that. They can't afford to move out for a particular kind of Darwinistic chemistry of empathy and hope. They start rationalizing, maybe if I love them enough, they'll change. Maybe the problem is me. I expect too much. No relationship is perfect. I should be grateful. This is how INFJs become conquerors in relationships that are starving their soul. They take patience for virtue and deceive themselves into compromise instead. Their unsatisfied longs become quiet despondency, a despondency they usually don't even admit to themselves. Spiritual loneliness is nourished by the unmet mind. According to Viktor Frankl, the most suffering, which is to feel unnecessary. For the INFJ, it is not enough to suffer. He must also suffer the unendurable pain of feeling not understood by others. They wish for love but long for a conversation, for the kind of merging minds that divide themselves from the mundane intonation. When there is no such merging, separation for them is an odd type of isolation. The extremely accompanied loves them, but at the end finds that person alone. Why? Because her husband does not engage in her mind, but only with her role, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband. There is polite interest rather than impassioned engagement when a thought is shared. Heightened one's essence has become an inconvenience for everyday life. This is the silent suffering of an INFJ, to be loved in parts but not in full. The self-crisis. Aldous Huxley did warn against the divided nature of modern man. This split is acutely felt by the INFJ in relationships. One needs to be loved but de-emphasize so as not to overwhelm other people. The rebellion toward freedom. Standing at a crossroads, the first path leads into the dark labyrinth of ever misunderstood yearning, while the second defines love in a wholly unconventional way. To follow this second path requires rebellion against societal scripts, against the instinct of self-sacrifice, and against the charming lie that to have depth is to be forever lonely. Dying out, the soulmate. Myth. The first liberation would come from a kind of Nietzschean revaluation of all values in regard to love. And for INFJs, the miserable truth. There is no perfect partner, but a compatible partner does exist. This doesn't mean they should be imposed with impossible demands. It is a refinement of possible suitors. Instead of searching for the one who replicates every facet of their soul, an impossible ideal, the INFJ must begin to have preferences for resonance over replication. Do they engage with your depth, even if they don't share all your passions? Effort over epiphany. Are they willing to grow, even if they don't yet understand? Safety over intensity. Can they provide stability and stimulate your mind? The aim becomes moving away from searching for a complete puzzle piece toward finding someone interested in forming that puzzle with me. The art of vulnerability. In Gabor Maté's work on attachment, one important insight is we don't attract what we want, we attract what we believe we deserve. Many INFJs swing between two approaches: over-disclosure, drowning new partners in their depth too soon, and under-disclosure, hiding behind a facade of pleasant mystery. The antidote? Staged authenticity. Like an ancient temple with outer courts and inner sanctums, the INFJ must learn to test emotional waters, share a meaningful but non-core belief early. Their reaction reveals compatibility. Observe consistency. Does their curiosity about you endure beyond the honeymoon phase? Protect the sacred. Reserve your most vulnerable revelations for those who've earned trust through time. This re-engineering of vulnerability transforms it from a gamble into a discerning art. The boundary revolution. Carl Jung warned that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For INFJs, true self-acceptance requires something unprecedented: love for the other without any attempt to save them. It means letting partners be perfectly imperfect. Their imperfections are theirs to deal with and not your cross to carry. Cutting off emotional vampires. Leave when a person loves your healing energy more than you. Tolerating the discomfort. Letting partners deal with consequences instead of cushioning every fall. These boundaries are not walls. They are the air that real love needs in order to breathe. The alchemy of realistic idealism. To love someone means to see them as God intended, wrote Dostoevsky. An evolved INFJ learns to apply that vision unrealistically. They love potential while seeing present reality clearly. They cherish depth while appreciating surface joys. They seek connection without demanding mind reading. This harmonious balance